Free Guy, the video game movie starring Ryan Reynolds. Another one of those movies that was supposed to come out last year, but, well, you know the story. And because Ryan Reynolds is here, I just had to take out my Deadpool stuffed plushie that I have. So, you did promote the movie, and that trailer was pretty good. Honestly, it'll be great if Deadpool could do more trailer reactions. I really love that one, so I'm gonna put it here. But anyway, yeah. Get me comfortable here, then. Free Guy. I was actually anticipating this film. Although you can tell that apparently is now that we had movies that technically is about, you know, a world inside a video game, kind of like an isekai. But we already seen all these things in cinema. Mostly the ones that are on the top of our heads are, of course, Ready Player One, in which the more I haven't revisited that film, but I do remember kind of just being okay. There were some parts that I got cringe on Ready Player One. And lately we had, of course, Space Jam, in which you already know the results that came out. By the way, a little bit of a heads up, I'll say that while I still don't hate Space Jam A New Legacy as much as many people does, unfortunately I will give you an update that my impressions of Space Jam 2 didn't improve, especially because of the behind-the-scenes stuff that were happening. And sometimes the more I think about it, is actually there's some really bad stuff that didn't sit very well from that point. But I'm not talking about that. I'm actually talking about Free Guy. But this is kind of a little bit of a background, considering that I myself I am a gamer, but not exactly an MMO player, or kind of one of these kind of, you know, sandbox player that some people get into it. I have a relative that isn't on Final Fantasy 14. Not me, for some reason. I find MMOs kind of boring. I am more kind of like a story-driven games. Perfect example. I got from the library Persona 5 Strikers. I'm having fun with that one. Okay, I am delaying the inevitable. I'm supposed to be talking about Free Guy. Because nothing else much I have to say, kind of like a background. The only thing I will say about it is that I do have a certain respect to Ryan Reynolds, considering that he brought Deadpool back from, well, his misinterpretation, and his Deadpool movies were pretty good. Although I did saw Ryan Reynolds in other movies, and he is really charismatic. I'll say that his charisma is on par to Dwayne Johnson. And probably even better, I'll say. So he looks like a real chill guy. He's one of those guys that I do really want to meet him in person. And kind of have a nice talk and probably drink a cup of coffee. Okay, and I'm going a little bit like that. But either way, I was actually expecting this movie. I wasn't expecting kind of like a high art masterpiece. And lo and behold, I just went in with a really hot day. Now I'm here, technically dressed up like the blue shirt guy. And here's the thing I'll say. I've been seeing many reviews saying that they're just kind of like, oh well, it's a good movie, but it's okay. There's some things that could have been done better, or something like that. That's the general reaction that I've been seeing from this movie. But for me, For me, I love this film. I'm mostly kind of a little bit of a sucker of movies that have kind of like these good ideas and they're not necessarily perfect. I am very forgiving on this film, and I know that it's flawed. I know that this movie has flaws. I know that there are some moments in which I could roll my eyes out, but I had a great time watching this film, and I got so invested to it that some of the things that I could kind of snap or say, "Oh my God, you did that." I actually came out really forgiving because I've seen worse examples of the whole thing. But either way, it brought a smile on my face, and there is a moment that it actually brought me a little bit teary-eyed. But anyway, if you want to know a little bit more, I will talk about it right now. But once I'll say that if you want kind of like just a fun film, even though it doesn't take itself a little bit too seriously, but at the same time, it tries to manage to make a fun video game like film. This one is, I'll say, is a good pick. But anyway, it's time for me to talk about this movie, in which in this movie is about Ryan Reynolds, who he plays as this NPC character from a video game called what was it, Free World or Freeland, I'll say. He's a bank teller. He always wear kind of like a blue shirt. He hangs around with his friend Buddy, who they're both co-workers in the same bank. The guy named Buddy, he's played by what was the name of the guy? Sorry, Literal Howard. He thinks in IMDb. And well, basically the NPC, for some reason, he feels like something is missing in his life. That is until he sees and falls in love with a woman named Millie. She played by Jodie Comer. And well, one day he decides to follow her, and apparently this basically breaks up some of the algorithm and the rules of the world. So he becomes kind of sentient, which basically it becomes the attention of the people who play the game, the people who work on the game, and at the same time we got two indie coders who one of them is working on the company, which I'll get to it, and the other one is trying to find out the kind of like a proof that the game has stolen data from that they got, but unfortunately the CEO of that company he stole it and used the codes, to make it kind of like this game. And something a little bit if you find it a little bit confusing, I'll say that yeah, this movie has a lot of coding lingos. I was actually kind of a little bit lucky to have a kind of like a multimedia degree to understand some of these things. But I'm no coder. Coding is probably one of my weakest aspects of multimedia. But at least it could help me understand this plot. All right, let me try again. Because yeah, we have this NPC who becomes sentient. And then, of course, we got the real world in which we have this couple. They created this game, but unfortunately, before it got released, the code was stolen by the CEO of this company, and then he used it to make kind of like this Grand Theft Auto style sandbox game. and of course they're trying to the coders are trying to find proof that, of course, because of legal issues, they need to deserve some royalty here and there. You know, the kind of stuff that that could make, you know, big gaming companies really scared. Obviously, I should talk about the acting at this point, because the acting for the most part is really good, and I am glad that this movie has the audacity to cast Ryan Reynolds as the lead, because the main protagonist is really likable and is as charismatic as Ryan Reynolds himself. And and I know that he may be an NPC, but at least the movie kind of treats itself, gives a little bit of a touch of a Truman Show scenario, in which you got this guy who lives kind of in a world in which he cannot escape. Well, once he becomes aware of that, about this, you know, that he can do things that are more than what he can be. Well, you get to see his faces that he say that, well, in order to impress the girl that I like, I'm gonna become a better man. And I like that scene in which he lives in this NPC world in which everything is blowing up. There's people shooting, looting, kind of like a typical Grand Theft Auto MMO. And by the way, if you ask me, I'm one of those guys who actually hate Grand Theft Auto. While I acknowledge what it does to the gaming community, I personally don't like the game, mostly by personal reasons. So that I'll leave it by that. But this is one of those scenarios in which you could have easily made the character saying that, oh, I can do whatever I want. So, all right then, I'm gonna start killing everyone, or I'm gonna steal money. I'm gonna drop this puppy out of a balcony or something like that, and I will have no repercussions. But instead, this guy, he's so good-natured that so much that he just decides to become a better man and actually helps out his fellow NPC players from, well, real gamer players. And one thing, there are two things that I forgot to mention. One, the guy's name is actually Guy. So I'll leave it like that. And the second thing is that in that world, every person who is a gamer, they're always distinguished because all of them are carrying these sunglasses. In which that actually becomes a big plot point, because the main character, when he's the biggest point that he has is that he falls in love with the Jellycomer character who is called Millie. She's always wearing these sunglasses, and everyone's kind of acts like everyone who wears sunglasses kind of like they're superiors. But once the guy gets the hold of one of these glasses, he begins to see almost like, you know, the world saying that, oh, there's a power up, there's the score, there's letters here, like for example, here's the shop here, there, kind of like he's looking the world of a video game. It's almost similar to They Live, but less scary. And speaking of the girl, Jellycomer, she plays both one of the indie programmers who is trying to find a scoop in order to sue that CEO, which I'll get by. And also she plays her in-game avatar, the one that our protagonist falls in love. And she does really good. I really bought her. What was it? Her arc, her motivations, and all these things. And she's working with this other guy what was the name of the guy? Oh, this guy named Keys. He's played by Joe Carey, who was his partner, and now he is working with the big CEO company. Where, well, he's a little bit reluctant to help her, because he needed the money or something like that. But he's always willing to help her in any time they need. But basically, they're just finding, a proof to sue the CEO. Oh my God, I think I gotta talk about that CEO. Is this guy named Antoine, played by Taika, what was the name? Taika Waititi. I can understand people why they're gonna turn off by that guy. And that is because this guy, every time he shows up, he is kind of like the biggest caricature of greedy, overzealous corporate, but in a way that he overacts a lot. So he's technically kind of like a walking lingo that he just say, hey, I know gamers, I know the community of gamers. I'm gonna talk in lingo and he says kind of lame words like shut down or something like that, or boo. I don't remember much, but still, this guy. And by the way, the way he dressed, it's astounding. He has these kind of like these big sneakers, this collar, these chain collars, this jacket. I mean, it's like he's trying too hard to cosplay as Guzma from what was it, from Pokemon Sun and Moon, because the dude, he really looks like a gangster who he just came out from the streets and he just stole someone and say, hey, I'm rich. I'm just falling out of my mind. But this, either way, the guy, the way he acts and the way he overacts, he's totally kind of like the biggest corporate schmuck you could ever seen, and boy, that he could turn off sometimes. Oh, and by the way, speaking of corporate, you won't believe the name of the company. Get this. The name of the company is Tsunami. And if it isn't enough that the name basically is kind of like a jab to Konami, wait until you see the logo. Because the logo is very similar to Blizzard. I know that Blizzard is having a lot of trouble with the community because of their shady business practices. And I know that the things that Konami did and lost its reputation as a gaming company. But, man, I don't know if that's genius or a big slap on the face. Mind you that Ryan Reynolds has kind of like this charisma that helps out the movie, but it also helps that the movie not only has one charismatic actor, but actually two, and that is with the character of Little Rel Howery, who plays the guy's best friend. He is what was it? A security guard from a bank. He's always assigned. Always the characters are technically assigned in which they're gonna go to the bank. They do their job, and then a player will go and say, everybody, get your hands up. And everyone's like, okay, hands up, and that's it. And honestly, it's funny that while the movie it sells out more kind of like a romance between Guy and Millie, this one actually sells out a good romance between Guy and the security guard who is named Buddy. because and both of them works really, really well. So much that there are a lot of the moments in which these two are together. It comes out as some of the most heartwarming moments in the movie, and I gotta give a lot of credit to Little Howery for his performance and his very charismatic and chemistry with Ryan Reynolds. So honestly, this is a big pat on the back on this guy. What else there I could talk about some of the acting? Let me check about that. Well, there's not much I have to say except that I gotta say that this movie also has the tendency to have some guest cameos. Not only with actors like Channing Tatum, but also there is some kind of like a moment in which they managed to get all these let's play YouTubers or Twitch gamers. Some of them I don't even know, but they're technically real because what was it? One who also Pokemon or Dan TT or something like that. I don't remember the name. The only gamer who actually know and it was there is Jacksepticeye. What was it? Jacksepticeye. It's the guy who he had this catchphrase saying "Top of the morning, everybody" or something like that. Yeah, that's what he did before. I think that he doesn't do it anymore. I'm surprised that they didn't get PewDiePie, considering that PewDiePie is one of the most recognizable of the Twitch gamers. And I will have encouraged some of the most underground people, or people who technically had better charisma. Some of them that I should have recommended if I was the director are, for example, Markiplier or One Shot Plays, or probably what was it? Or Sonic Guru, or probably, or Lucajin, or Masanela, hell, even Willy Versus. I could have recommended, even though. Yeah, sometimes the way they talk, it kind of a little bit slip off the radar of, on the way they talk and something like that. Hell, I could even go with Game Grumps for better or worse for some people. Pro Jared. I mean, Pro Jared once had a cameo in a show, and he basically, well, quote unquote, sold out his soul in order to make himself, well, PG-13 or something like that. But that's just kind of like a little nitpick. Some people might find it a little bit too much. But honestly, I'm okay with this. Although, probably I'll say that the biggest surprise of a guest star that kind of made me laugh, I'll say that there was one moment almost during the climax of the movie that made me laugh, but I'm not gonna reveal what it is. But the only thing I will say is that it's kind of like the movie's moment to show off that, hey, even though we're from Fox Studios, now we belong to Disney, so we're gonna show off that we belong to Disney. So we're gonna have this Marvel and Star Wars presentation. Although I would have been angry about it, but luckily it's kind of like these micro moments that I didn't mind. But someone appears and its reaction is priceless. I just kind of love it. Oh, and speaking of Marvel, yes, you can notice in the background that there was someone that's having Deadpool merch. Alright, cinematography. I would say that it was good for what it was. I didn't notice so much shaky camera. Some of the other technicalities that I like is that, well, this movie could have easily been kind of like it was kind of like Ready Player One with a lot of convoluted stuff, on the background. This is something that I always complain in both Ready Player One and recently Space Jam: A New Legacy, in which they have all these really recognizable IPs that on the background, and honestly, well, it's kind of like a bold move, kind of cute, I'll say. The problem is that sometimes you are a little bit too nostalgic about it. You get too distracted from seeing kind of, stuff in the background. Like, for example, hey, look at this. There's Battletoads. Hey, look at this. There's the Iron Giant. Hey, look at this. There's King Kong, and so on. And well, technically, I'll say that Space Jam was the New Legacy was kind of like the biggest guilty or the biggest fault on them all, because that one was a huge vanity project. Ready Player One was kind of like a little bit more experimental, but at least it made some nice use on some of the references that it was doing, which the references in Free Guy is a little bit kind of like more simpler and minimal at best. Sometimes you're gonna notice that kind of like in the background and saying that, hey, what is that, or something like that. But it's not. But luckily, it's not convoluted. That helped me out at least to focus on the characters, on what they're doing, or something like that. Honestly, if I have to say a little bit of a kind of a criticism to the movie, is that when sometimes we jumped out from the real world to the game world, you sometimes don't notice easily except for the vibrant colors or something like that. But my biggest criticism that I actually have is that if you look at the game in the real world, you see the models, that you see how the character goes, and and honestly, I would say that game is garbage. The graphics is so 2000. It's kind of like playing. It's kind of like either has good technology that can't even that it can be done in real life, but these graphics, my God, it's not god awful, but it's so outdated. Probably it's because they didn't have kind of like a bigger budget to create kind of like a World of Warcraft style or Final Fantasy style gaming. Sometimes you get camera shots that are technically not I'll say that the camera shots of the game, the in-game, is they're more cinematic than what you can do on a real life video game. If I am, I'll say that this is kind of like my criticism, saying that how can people in 2020 play games with these graphics and they kind of say it's revolutionary. So basically, yeah, that's one of the few criticisms that I have, in which there's some of the video game logic that basically I will kind of roll my eyes out. But on the other hand, people like Wreck-It Ralph, which is another movie that feels so familiar with it. And now that I think about it, this is something that I've been hearing a lot of criticism of people saying that, well, it feels like Ready Player One. Well, it feels like Wreck-It Ralph. Well, it feels like what are the other movies that it feels so familiar, very, very, how can I say, very familiar. Let's say it's borrowed from other movies, but honestly, yeah, maybe. But I say a million times that I'm forgiving on this one, because number one, I watch so many movies that it feels so familiar, and so probably newcomer will see it as something new, something refreshing, or something that they're gonna see from past movies. So it's mostly kind of like a taste and age. So honestly, this is something that I basically I'm more forgiving unless they make it well or make it good. And in this case, it kind of earned that forgiveness. I'm gonna try to go a little bit brief on how can I say some of the negatives I could say about the movie. A little bit to well, as much as I love the movie, like always, I don't want to overhype it. And honestly, some of the people who feel like, well, it's good, but there's something missing or something like that, I do understand. I do understand that some people are not very welcoming on some of the video gamey hit moments that they try to be, or some of the way they talk most of the time is very much kind of like this video game coding language in which people who are not exactly into it, they kind of how can I say, they're not kind of understand it, because they talk about algorithms of coding, or sometimes they say that, well, this one lines up here and there, and trust me that professional coders, they had to go through a lot with this. It's not easy to code, and even the weight of language is gonna confuse kind of like a lot of people. I did also tell you that people might get turned off by our villain, because as much and as wacky of a caricature this guy is, his overacting might turn off a lot of people. It's like, well, he's a little bit too much. He's exactly kind of like a cartoon. In a way, this guy is like he wants this guy and what was it, the villain from Space Jam: New Legacy. These type, if they meet, is gonna be like the Wonderland Tea Party. Oh my. What other criticism I'll say? Well, I already talked to you about that, some of the familiar territory that people get into. Well, I don't think that I have probably some of the guest starring feels a little bit too much. Some of the references could be a little bit meh. But anyway, one final thing that I do want to mention is that call me a little bit of an overanalyzer or something like that, but I kind of get a little bit of the theme that it was going on. Because even with the corporate villain, that he's basically kind of like this gung-ho saying that, kill this guy, we're gonna make a lot of money or something like that. I only care about money. I don't care, something like that. That's the way he talked. That's the way he talked during the whole film. But I get it. It's kind of like a caricature, and I get that what he was trying to do is that. And something that I kind of noticed is that if you see the world is really cynical, and this is what I notice even when I go to some Let's Plays, I'll say, because honestly, people in gaming are a little bit too desensitized to the violence and the gratuitous that some games has, so much that they begin to treat the NPCs like it's nothing, I'll say. And then we, because of the power of, well, magical AI technology that they wanted to incorporate in this movie, two romantic programmer, they decided to build a game in which they may how can I say, NPCs a little bit more, how can I say, they learn from experience or something like that. So much that the game is also called Life Itself. And for a moment, I thought that it was gonna be kind of like a spoof what was it? Life is Strange. But basically, I kind of understand. I did kind of understand. We got this whole world. It's just blowing up, blowing shit up. I mean, you can see how the gamers are technically kind of cruel to the NPCs because it's basically a big sandbox. At first it's about like kill this guy, but then when the guy becomes sentient and becomes kind of like its own little world superhero, and then some people are saying, hey, the guy with the blue shirt is becoming a sensation, and so much that little by little he becomes loved by not only the people from the other worlds, but also the fellow NPCs. And you know what? I get that. I know that it feels a little bit pretentious of me talking about it, but the way that because let me hear you. I'll tell you a little bit of an experience. I can understand, having fun with, being a jerk on NPCs or something like that. This is kind of like the part of gaming. But sometimes I don't like to be overly desensitized. I'm desensitized to violence and all these things, thanks to gaming and all these things, but I'm not exactly desensitized for the, how can I say, other things. Like, for example, I already told you about Grand Theft Auto, why I hesitate. No, I didn't tell you exactly why I hesitate to play Grand Theft Auto despite another. For example, here's a good example. Like, for example, the famous indie game Undertale. Undertale is a great game. I'm not gonna overhype it just in case, but hear me out. I love Undertale. I love the way it was doing and everything. There's kind of like the mode in which you are gonna be a pacifist, and the other one that you're gonna be kind of like a jerk and kill off everything. In a way, I'm kind of glad that I was spoiled, and I know that even if people knowing they go to the path of being a jerk, called the genocide path or something like that. Yeah, the genocide path. Here's the thing with me. I understand the consequence of that this game was programmed. And even thought I know there's a genocide path, I never took it. I never play it. For some reason, even if I want to, something detains me. I don't know. I can't. I just can't. That's how a little bit sensitive I even got with NPCs sometimes. You can judge me whatever you want, but somehow I kind of refuse to have my game quote unquote corrupted because I wanted to be a jerk on video gaming. As much as I heard that it's fun, I just can't. That kind of like this is some of the things that Free Guy just reminded me of. Even while I am gaming, sometimes I can't be a jerk, even when gaming. At least sometimes I can be a jerk in order to get an achievement or something like that, considering that it might not be a consequence because, hey, I can't be too attached to, well, something of a game, of something that is non-existent. But sometimes fictional things can touch our hearts sometimes. Well, if there is an opportunity that AI can even love, then it will be a great anthropological study about how we interact with, and sometimes we get attached attached with our tools. As much as it sounds weird, but it does. So these are some things that mostly help me out on appreciating Free Guy. I think I talked long enough about this movie. Do I recommend it? Yes! Yes, I do. At least personally. Some people will say that, it's a rental. Okay, fine enough, but you're gonna miss out that when you watch it on the big screen, some of the letters, they look so cool. You're gonna, and I guarantee you that you're gonna get kind of like an experience. There's some really, really touching moments. Some of the jokes work as you make your pick on which you're gonna feel good about it, which you're gonna have a laugh, or some of the moments that you're gonna, or if you're gonna support Ryan Reynolds in this movie. But anyway, check it out. Check it out. You have your own complete ring, so you can be. Well, I don't have anything else to say to close out this, so you're free to do whatever you want.